Give everything you got is what head coach Josh Nielsen said to his team before it finished third in the EAGL championship.
And it was pro day on Temple's campus as many young athletes put their talents on display with hopes of playing at the next level.
And I'm Sage Hurley with coaching news. Temple is now shopping for a new women's basketball coach as the Owls say goodbye to the winningest coach in program history.
And I'm Sam Massid, live from the Star Complex, where we'll talk about how athletes are educated on the dangers of substance abuse. OwlSports Update is live and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of OwlSports Update. I'm Max Gretzula. She's Emilie Cochrane. Basketball season is over, but not without a pink slip on the women's side.
Athletic Director Arthur Johnson announced it's time for a change. Our very own Sage Hurley is here to discuss Tanya Cardoza's departure from the nest after 14 seasons. Hey, Sage.
Hey, guys. Yes, the winningest coach in program history is history. Word came down on Tuesday morning that Temple is not bringing back Coach Tanya Cardoza. She just finished her 14th year, and while she won close to 300 games on North Broad, these last few seasons have been less than impressive. Cardoza leaves Temple with 251 wins and 188 losses, 3 Big Five Coach of the Year awards, but very little success in the month of March. Part of her legacy will be coaching Mia Davis, now an all-time Temple great. But even with Davis, Cardoza only won 2 postseason games. Temple's new athletic director, Arthur Johnson, said, "We expect to be a perennial postseason team, and we will look for the right coach to elevate the program to that status." We'll be keeping a close eye on the coaching search for the next few weeks, so don't forget to check in with us on social media at OwlSports Update. Reporting from the studio set, I'm Sage Hurley. Emilie and Max, back to you.
Thank you, Sage. While Temple looks for a new coach, Mia Davis is looking for a new home. Temple's all-time points leader announced her farewell to Temple via Twitter. She thanked God, coaches, teammates, family, and fans for helping her succeed from the moment she stepped foot on campus. The 4-time All-AAC first-team forward has declared for the 2022 WNBA Draft, which takes place on April 11th. The lacrosse team went head-to-head with Monmouth on Wednesday afternoon, looking for its second win in 4 days. The Owls were shaky early on, trailing 3-0 after this unassisted goal from Cassidy Orban. Later on, it's Mackenzie Roth lurking behind the net before coming free and shooting one past the goalie at point-blank range. Temple was peppering the net all game long, scoring 7 straight goals in the second quarter alone. The Owls beat the Hawks in a battle of the birds, 13-10.
With high preseason expectations and a national ranking, you can argue the lacrosse team has hit a few speed bumps in its non-conference schedule. OwlSports Update's Gil Rosen, who is in no way related to head coach Bonnie Rosen, is at the studio set with his mixed message on the Owls. Hey, Gil.
Thanks, Emilie. The lacrosse team is still a work in progress. Despite the early season national ranking and with conference play coming up soon, we are asking the question, are they conference contenders or conference pretenders? Contender talk. The Owls have scored in double digits against every opposing team this season, except for number 7 Rutgers. That lands them top in goals per game among the other conference teams. Bailmaster Pietro and Quinn Nicolai have scored a bit more than 50% of the team's goals this season. The Owls are 7-3 overall. But pretender talk. Temple is winless against ranked teams so far, 0-2. And they lost to a Delaware team that at the time had only 1 win on the year. Conference play hasn't started yet, but if you look at the non-conference records in the AAC, the Owls do not have the best winning percentage. But you have to keep an eye on Florida. The Gators' record doesn't look overly impressive, but Florida has played 5 games against national ranked teams where they are 1-4. The Owls season is far from being over. Actually, in many ways, it's still just the beginning since they haven't played a conference game yet. Next up, the team's final non-conference game against number 5 Syracuse. This is likely the highest ranked team the Owls will play this season. Game is on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Max and Emilie, back to you.
With the NFL draft looming, the Owls have some possible draft prospects. Wednesday was Pro Day, a chance for NFL scouts to check out the top college players in our area. While you may recognize him from Courts in Session, Ray Dunn returns to his Inside the Nest roots and joins us on the desk. Hello, Ray. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You were there at Pro Day yesterday, saw all of these athletes in action. Do any of them have a realistic shot of having their name called on draft day?
Right now, I'm going to say no. It doesn't look like a Temple player will get drafted, but that doesn't mean that yesterday a couple of guys didn't up their stock. I look in the secondary right now, Freddie Johnson and Jeremy Jennings, the word for them, explosive. Their lower halves were really showing off in this Pro Day, a 10-3, a 10-4 in the broad jump. Freddie Johnson had the best 40, a 4.47. Jeremy Jennings, a former track guy, a 4.57. They really looked good. Will Cuenca was smiling through all of availability. He felt like he had a really, really good day. He ran a 4.640, which is really good for a linebacker. And then Manny Walker, he had a quietly good day as well. So there's some guys that really raised their stock. I don't think there's a draft prospect in there, though.
So we saw many former Temple Owls at Pro Day yesterday, including former quarterback Anthony Russo. What did you see from him?
Anthony Russo looks good. Physically, he looks a lot leaner. He's really focused on his body, and he mentioned that a lot through his availability. He only threw for us, and you saw some really good deep passes. That was something that was always good with him. The arm strength was always a plus. He mentioned in this season where he didn't play a lot because he lost the quarterback competition at Michigan State, that he really focused on the cerebral part of the game, learning about the game, and that was something, a big question mark at Temple, reading defenses. So he's stepped his game up there. I imagine he'll get a camp invite somewhere.
And finally, I want to ask you about Amir Tyler. I understand he was there at Pro Day yesterday doing some charity work.
Yeah, so Reps for Rare Diseases, he said that his vertical jump would be for charity. So basically, I don't know if you ever participated in a walkathon, but you give, and then whatever you're able to do in that type of event, that's what people give. So people could give a certain amount per dollar per inch of what he would do in the vertical jump. He jumped to 38. Online, he said 37 his goal. He told us 40 was his goal, so I'm not really sure, but he halved it about there with a 38, so you can go onto all of his social media pages and donate to that cause.
All right, Ray. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the desk today. Temple is about halfway through its spring season. The Cherry and White game is only about 2 weeks away. And one thing head coach Stan Drayton has enjoyed so far is seeing former Owls coming back to 10th and Diamond to reconnect with this program.
We got more and more players coming back, showing their interest and their excitement for this program. And it's been phenomenal for our football players. We continue to identify the personality of this football team. We just want to put our kids in the best position to have success, and we want to put our team in the best position to win ball games. But there's some fundamental technique things that we need to work on to enhance ourselves of being that way on a consistent basis. So it's a work in progress for sure.
With over 30 vets returning to the nest under a brand new coach, my spring standout is Kyle Dobbins. The New Jersey native was part of a crowded running back committee last season. Dobbins averaged 3.6 yards per carry, including a 3-touchdown performance versus Wagner. Dobbins will be a leader on this team with plenty of eligibility left, and he will likely make a big impact with more playing time as a redshirt junior.
I like that pick, and I'm staying on the offensive side of the ball as well. My spring standout comes from the tight end room in the form of David Martin Robinson. Head coach Stan Drayton mentioned a few weeks ago that the tight end group has a chance to be, quote, really good. Now you can take that however you want, but Martin Robinson is the veteran of that group and should get the first crack at starting duties, as long as he remains healthy. But remember, he missed all but 3 games last season due to injury.
Now it's time to take a break, something Arthur Johnson has yet to do during his time on campus.
The Temple Athletic Director has been a busy man 6 months into the job. We'll show you how when OwlSports Update returns on the other side. Welcome back to OwlSports Update. You know what time it is, the M&M mailbag. You submit questions on our Twitter page, and we answer them here in TV Studio 3. The first question comes from Chris Berger, and he asks, who's going to lead the women's basketball team with both Cardoza and Davis gone?
So in terms of players, there's no doubt that fifth-year forward Alexa Williamson has that leadership mentality to step up, especially with Mia Davis out of a cherry and white uniform. As for coach, Jim Liddell really stands out. He stepped down from his head coaching position at Oklahoma State literally less than 24 hours ago. Seems like perfect timing. Plus, he led the Cowgirls to 6 NCAA tournaments, and he was a 2-time Big 12 Coach of the Year. Now, our next question comes from OwlSports Update alum and current anchor and reporter from Indy, Alexa Ross. She asks, what are you most excited about in the Stan Drayton era?
There's no doubt I'm most excited about the team's change in effort, attitude, and toughness. This is a slogan Coach Drayton has preached since accepting the job, and it was clear the message to the players last season wore thin. The real challenge will be staying consistent all season long, paying attention to detail in practice, and overall game day preparation. They may also want to work on that first quarter scoring as well. Thanks for all the questions. If you want your question answered on our show, be sure to check out our social media pages at OwlSports Update.
Now, one guy keeping an eye on the football team is Arthur Johnson. Halfway through his first year on North Broad, and this guy does not miss. He has been committed to showing up and supporting many Owls at their athletic events. OwlSports Update's Jacob Spedley has the story.
I want to conclude by saying
Arthur Johnson has been on the job for just 6 months as Temple's athletic director. But if you haven't seen him, met him, or sat down and talked with him, it's likely you're not trying hard enough.
This is a new era of excellence in athletics, and we couldn't be.
I want to make sure we got the right leadership team in place, and with that leadership team, we'll sit down in a staff retreat and decide where that vision goes.
Upon arriving on campus in October, Arthur Johnson began administering surveys and conducting interviews.
I spent a lot of time listening and learning, trying to meet and visit with as many as possible.
Johnson has quickly built a reputation outside the office and in the bleachers.
I think he shows up. You want an athletic director that's involved and pays attention to everything.
Since taking the job, Johnson has brought in 2 new coaches from Power 5 programs to lead a pair of fall sports. From his old school, Stan Drayton from the University of Texas for football, and Linda Hampton Keith from North Carolina State for volleyball. Drayton said from day one, his goal is to win championships. This spring, he's trying to start laying the groundwork. Reporting from the Aramark Star Complex, I'm Jacob Smedley, OwlSports Update.
There's a real connection between mental health and substance abuse. OwlSports Update Sam Massad is live at the Star Complex with a look at an important topic that isn't talked about enough. Hey, Sam.
Thanks, Max. Communication between athletes and their athletic staff is vital when it comes to the topic of substance abuse. It is important to keep that clear line of communication, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. On top of everything student athletes have to worry about, in addition to their sport and their studies, there are a long list of NCAA rules and regulations. This includes drugs, not just illegal drugs, but also performance enhancers. Students have required training for drugs just once or twice their freshman year. There are also team and individual conversations, as well as reminders each semester. It's important that each school has one person on staff just to address this issue, such as Temple's Christy Bannon.
Like we talk about at the beginning of the year meeting that we have with student athletes where there's required paperwork that they sign.
There are a wide range of issues that can lead to an athlete using a drug or performance enhancer. However, mental health is one of the largest contributors. According to the American College of Sports and Medicine, only 10% of all college athletes with known mental health conditions seek care from a mental health professional. Athletic trainers are one of the main sources of support for athletes in this area. They are the ones who see changes in athletes' behavior. Due to the importance of their job, athletic trainers are in constant communication with the compliance office. There are tremendous resources at the Wellness Center available to anybody who is dealing with substance abuse, as well as counseling for anybody dealing with issues affecting their mental health.
Some of the things that like mental health does, like they do a lot of wellness talks.
It is imperative that student athletes communicate to athletic staff and attend workshops throughout the semester to learn and understand the effects that substances can have on their well-being and careers. A recent medical study showed 25 to 30% of student athletes report some sort of mental health issues. That's a lot of students considering that Temple only has 600 athletes on campus. Reporting from the Star Complex, I'm Sam Massad. Back to you guys on desk.
When we come back, all eyes are on women in sports.
We touch on the impact Title IX has had on the sports media industry dating back to 1972. OwlSports Update will be back in 90 seconds.
Welcome back. For women and young girls, the year 2022 is historical for many reasons. March is always a celebration during Women's History Month, and this year Title IX is celebrating its 50th anniversary in June. Title IX was passed to help prevent gender discrimination in the educational athletic system. I spoke with female athletes, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, and even our very own Women in OwlSports Update. And this is what 50 years of Title IX means to them.
I'm grateful for Title IX because it gives me the opportunity to pursue what I love and represent my school.
Title IX reminds us of the women who trailblazed opportunities for girls in sports.
Without Title IX, I wouldn't be able to follow my dreams as a collegiate cheerleader and a woman in the sports industry.
It's really about appreciating what those who have come before me have done.
Without Title IX, I wouldn't be able to help athletes return to the sport that they love.
I'm grateful for Title IX because it gives everyone an equal opportunity to participate in college sports.
It motivates young girls to continue in their sports knowing they have the support and opportunity to achieve great things.
Title IX means that I get to watch other women achieve their goals and report on their successes.
Title IX means I'm able to play at the collegiate level and represent my school the same way men are able to.
For me, Title IX is about giving girls the opportunity to gain leadership experience in sports that the men get.
By all means, this is not over yet, but just the beginning.
Thank you, Title IX.
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 And for me, Title IX is not only about being able to stand here today, but it's also about the women who came before me. I had the opportunity to sit down with Hall of Fame MLB sports writer Claire Smith to talk about Title IX, the obstacles she faced before the federal law came to be, and the importance of support from loved ones when achieving your goals. So what kind of changes do you see in your career now that Title IX is officially put in place?
Well, I actually was working for the Philadelphia Bulletin and then the Hartford Courant, and I covered women's college basketball when it was still AIAW. Some of the iconic coaches that I covered included C. Vivian Stringer. To get to the first NCAA championship game, her team had to have bake sales and raffles and everything, arrange their own transportation, van transportation to get the team there. They had to raise the money. So Vivian actually took Cheney State to the first NCAA championship game. And that was the sea change right there, where the AIAW basically ceased to exist because the NCAA woke up.
So talking about workspaces, why do you think there's such an absence of women in the sports media industry?
As women, we find ourselves being the caretakers and the homemakers and for our children and making those decisions. We used to joke in the press box, what does every working woman need? A wife to take care of things at home. Having that significant other there is the biggest help you can have. I adopted my son, I'm a single mom. And everybody told me it was doable. Go for it. That's a wonderful thing to do. They didn't tell me how hard it would be being a single mom and staying the course with baseball. My son was, he had a great understanding for what I was doing, and yet when he became an adult, he admitted that he hated my job because it took me away so much. And that was kind of heartbreaking, but later on he tells me at every turn how proud he is of what I was able to accomplish, so that helped a lot. Women have broken the glass ceiling and forced sports to accept them as equals, and that women will never allow that glass ceiling to be reconstructed again. That's a run-on sentence. No editor would let me get away with that.
The Claire Smith Center for Sports Media at Temple is set to open in just a few years. The center will pave the way for future sports media scholars to pursue their goals, just as Claire did. Now we turn it over to OwlSports Update's Brielle Berry, who gives us a closer look at some important events in women's sports. Hey, Brielle.
Thank you, Em. Women in sports are constantly having firsts, whether it's Becky Hammon head coaching an NBA game in 2020 or Callie Brownson coaching the Browns in the NFL. Locally, what about Kate Scott as the play-by-play announcer for the Sixers? Women are consistently stepping up in male-dominated spaces. 3 monumental moments come to mind when thinking about Title IX. When the WNBA was established in 1997, the league started with only 8 teams. The WNBA has since expanded to 12 teams since its founding, compared to the NBA's 30-team league. It is trending in the right direction. Next, in 2017, Doris Burke, an NBA analyst for ESPN, became the first woman to have a full regular season role at the national level. She is one of the best analysts in the NBA, and in March, she signed a well-deserved contract extension with ESPN. Lastly, back in November of 2020, Vanderbilt kicker Sarah Fuller made history. She became the first woman to play and score in a Power 5 football game, a very short sample of a growing list. Reporting from the studio set, I'm Brielle Berry. Max and Emily, back to you.
It's time to take our final break of the day, but before we do so, I know it must have been really emotional hearing what Claire Smith had to say.
Yeah, I mean, she was great. Everything she had to say about, her son and everything she went through with her family, being a woman in the sports industry, it was just super inspiring. And as being a woman in the sports industry, it was just nice to be there. So stick with us, guys. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Temple Athletics was action-packed last weekend. The Temple gymnastics team placed third to round out their regular season last weekend. 3 track and field team members placed in the top 10 in their 3,000-meter run. The golf team finished 7th out of 12 teams at the ECU Intercollegiate, and the women's tennis team lost a close battle versus the Penn Quakers by a final score of 4-3. This coming weekend will be a busy few days for Temple sports. For example, if you have a friend on the men's tennis team, don't expect them to hang out too much with you. The guys will play 3 consecutive days, including matchups versus Hampton, Old Dominion, and finally Norfolk State on Sunday. Furthermore, the women's track and field team has a weekend-long rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. Say that 10 times.
Let's not forget about tennis. 2 members will be competing in the NCAA championship all weekend at Notre Dame. With more on this trip to nationals, here's OwlSports Update's Taylor Hess.
Thanks, guys. I'm outside the TU Pavilion, where the number 10 ranked Temple fencing team is preparing for the NCAA Nationals. This team has been strong all season, but has had its troubles against other ranked opponents. As the season winds down, 2 of their athletes have been selected to move on and compete in the NCAA championship for the very first time. Junior Naomi Ross was selected to compete in the NCAA championships in 2020, but that was canceled due to COVID. Ross stayed ready and finished in 3rd place at Epee at this year's regionals. And Anna Novoseltseva, a freshman foil, placed 7th at her first collegiate regionals. Naomi and Anna will look to bring some hardware home for Temple fencing this Saturday in Indiana. Max and Emily, back to you.
That's all the time we have for today. I'm Max Gretzula. Shout out Cougs. Stay hot.
And I'm Emilie Cochrane. Go Peacocks. Keep it up. Have a lovely day, everyone.